It's noon on Monday. I'm Leanne Young. We're here in the CBC newsroom in Vancouver. I've got your top stories from around our region. Residents in the Fraser Valley are holding their breath as another atmospheric river rolls in. The BC River Forecast Centre has issued flood warnings for the North Shore and for the Sumas and Chilliwack rivers at Vedder Crossing. This follows periods of heavy rain earlier today, with more expected tonight. Environment Canada has issued orange alerts for the Abbotsford, Chilliwack and Manning Park areas, with 40 to 80 millimeters in the forecast. This comes after waters receded on the weekend. That allowed Highway 1 through to Abbotsford to reopen, and many evacuation orders were downgraded to alerts. Meanwhile, this is the Seymour River in North Vancouver, running high and fast this morning. Heavy rain and warm temperatures are melting snow at higher elevations. The River Forecast Centre says levels have already reached a 50-year flow. The agency says it's possible other North Shore rivers will reach flood levels later today. And this latest flood has many calling on higher levels of government to do more to prevent a repeat of the catastrophic floods from 2021. The Nooksack River continues to pose flooding risk in areas like Abbotsford. Premier David Eby says the province will continue that dialogue with political leaders in Washington state.
I think that following this, we'll have to redouble our efforts with Washington state. They're in the middle of a real challenge right now, and they have an important part to play in terms of preventing flooding on our side of the border, and we both have a part to play in terms of ensuring good communications. The upside of the work that we've done is we had a lot of advance warning of this compared to 2021, which enabled better coordination on our side of the border, but I think there's more we can do.
He says after the historic flooding in 2021, BC established a dialogue with Washington state, which has improved communication and the sharing of information. The Nooksack River, located in Washington state, swelled and overflowed due to the atmospheric river. That contributed to last week's flooding in Abbotsford. And surrounding municipalities have also had local roads and highways damaged. The mayor of Hope says his region is dealing with the aftermath of several smaller landslides on Highway 3, flooding from the Coquihalla River, and pooled water on roadways. And for the next while, he recommends staying home when the weather is poor. And if you have to head out, want to be prepared.
You should always make sure you're gassed up in that. Things can change in a heartbeat, and then all of a sudden you're out of fuel in that, eh? So everything's open here. We're welcome everybody. We have rooms and everything else for, should that. But make sure you plan your trip and be safe.
To other news of the day, One BC says it has removed Dallas Brody as its party leader. It started Saturday when the only other MLA in the party, House Leader Tara Armstrong, said in a statement she had lost all confidence in Brody's leadership. When asked about it on Sunday, Brody told CBC News word of her removal came as a big surprise.
We're still looking into the legalities of it, but I consider myself to be the leader. This has happened really quickly, and I need to make sure there are a lot of people still relying on me, and I'm getting inundated with letters saying what's going on and what's going on.
Brody says she had brought forward concerns about the conduct of a party staffer. One BC received official party status after splitting from the BC Conservatives in June. Meanwhile, One BC's website no longer includes any mention of Dallas Brody. And that's it for me. I'm Leanne Young. Coming up, BC Today with Amy Bell sitting in for Michele. Elliott is next. Don't go anywhere. Much more flood coverage on the way. Local news right after this. Thanks.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Hollywood has been rocked by the death of actor and director Rob Reiner. Known for his hits like This Is Spinal Tap, The Princess Bride, and When Harry Met Sally, we're going to take a look at both his influence on films and what his legacy will be. And 'tis the season for stressing out. From family fights to holiday spending, we'll look at the pressure to make Christmas magical and how to best manage the stress. I'm Amy Bell, in for Michele Elliott, and this is BC Today. And thanks for joining us on radio, TV, and live stream. You can call us now on our top story. What is your favorite Rob Reiner film? Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also call 1-800-825-5950 or pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email us bctoday@cbc.ca. But first, another round of heavy rain is expected to hammer the Fraser Valley as the area continues to deal with the aftermath of the flooding it saw late last week and through the weekend. For more on this, we're joined by CBC reporter Jessica Cheung, live from Abbotsford. Hi, Jess, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm a little drier than you are. What are you seeing out there right now?
Yeah, it is. It's raining. It's actually downpouring right now. And so obviously this is something that officials are going to be looking at in the aftermath of this flooding event. But right now I'm actually looking at the Chilliwack River. You can see some of that accumulation of debris that's happening, and that is the aftermath of, all of this water and debris coming through as the floodwaters are coming through. And crews are primarily here this morning just to get rid of some of that debris, free it from that kind of clog right there and have it flow down to the rest of the river. But this river is what officials are really going to be looking at today, not only because of the rain. Of course, obviously rain is going to be a huge factor in how much is going to accumulate and impact the flooding situation that's already impacting the Fraser Valley. But also they're saying that the warm temperatures make snow melt a factor here, saying that could actually melt some of the snow and that could accumulate and be a factor in how much water levels go up. And obviously floodwaters are already here and has drenched the Fraser Valley, so that it's kind of a three punch here. We have the rain, we've got the floodwaters that already exist here, and then the risk of snow melt as well. So officials are going to be really watching this. They have said that the Chilliwack River and its tributaries are under a flood warning, which means that river levels have exceeded or are expected to imminently exceed their banks, and there could be flooding in nearby areas, Amy.
And do we have any idea what the conditions are going to be for the both short and long-term forecast?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, like I was talking about, what Chilliwack is really going to see, but really throughout the Fraser Valley, things have quite improved since, late last week when we were in the midst of some of, the flooding that was happening here. The Nooksack that breached its banks late last week. That overspill is no longer coming over the border into Canada, so that's also good news. But of course, rain is really top of mind. Environment Canada has issued an orange level rainfall warning for parts of the Fraser Valley. That's in Abbotsford and also here in Chilliwack. Now, orange warnings, they indicate severe weather that is likely to cause significant damage or disruption. And as I said, they're thinking up to 80 millimeters of rain could fall in this region, especially at higher elevations. And so we will have to be looking into how much of that is going to be an impact to the already drenched areas here in the Fraser Valley. Power is out for thousands of people in the Lower Mainland. Here in the Fraser Valley, 8,300 residents are in the dark. We actually passed by a road that was closed because the strong winds that are happening today knocked over trees and there are live wires on the road. So crews definitely working hard to kind of deal with some of this aftermath, and also residents and officials looking at what's to come with the rain and with all of these weather factors happening here in the Fraser Valley.
And what's the status of the evacuation orders now?
Yeah, so the city of Abbotsford lifted all of its original evacuation alerts. That was over 1,000 alerts that were lifted. They also downgraded nearly 250 evacuation orders in the Sumas Prairie. Those properties are still under an alert, so people still need to be wary and ready to go at a moment's notice. So overall, 77 properties remain on an evacuation order, 408 remain on an evacuation alert, Amy.
And have you had a chance to talk to people out there? What are you hearing about the flood response?
Yeah, so I mean, people here, of course, are emotional, weary. Anxiety is a big word that's being used. Not really knowing what's to come, especially with these weather systems that are coming, and they're just relentless, right? We just went through a lot of rain and precipitation. They're bracing for another round of that, and it just seems never ending. But the rapid damage assessments are underway today from the city staff and also from Canada Task Force 1. They're inspecting homes to see if people can go back, if it's safe for them to go back. They tag them green, yellow, red, green being safe to go back, yellow being that there are some conditions there, and red being absolutely not, you can't go back unless you are authorized to do so. So to give you a scope of like the damage, especially with this pool of homes that have been assessed, over 250 homes were tagged green. So that means people can go home. 9 were tagged yellow and none were tagged red. So, you know, it is a bit of a good news story as people get to go home and the damage doesn't seem as extensive. But either way, for the people who do get to go home, they're going to be assessing the damage. They're going to have to be dealing with that. And of course, that's a whole different story there. Many of the community here just feel, you know, emotional anxiety about this flood event. And I'm sure they're going to be continued in feeling that for many days to come. Amy.
I can only imagine. It's been a difficult few days for everybody. We also just got an update from the city of Abbotsford. They've downgraded the evacuation orders for Castle Fun Park and Clarion Hotel and Conference Center, moving both properties to evacuation alert. So that is the very latest. Jessica, thank you so much for taking time with us today.
Thanks, Amy.
That is CBC reporter Jessica Cheung in Abbotsford. And starting right after our show at 1 o'clock, we will bring you a live update on the flood risk and response with the Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, Kelly Green, and the Minister of Agriculture and Food, Lana Popham. It is 12:13, and this is BC Today. And last week, Abbotsford Mayor Ross Siemens put the federal government on blast for what he claims was its inaction to the floods. Following Siemens' criticism, the federal Minister of Emergency Management issued a response with its intent to call the Abbotsford mayor. Here's what Minister Eleanor Olszewski said about their conversation.
We had a really good discussion, including a discussion regarding the 2021 floods. And what I told him at that time is that there, with respect to this current flooding situation, we talked a little bit about the funding through disaster assistance funding that will be available to the people of British Columbia with respect to the current flooding and the various streams of money that are available. And I would like to point out to your listeners that we in fact modernized the disaster funding mechanism, and that was done and put into effect in April of this year.
They weren't covered in 2021 when the federal government sent representatives to the Fraser Valley and promised to fix things.
So I think I would want your listeners to understand that there are really two things that we can talk about. And one thing is the disaster funding that takes place post-disaster. And it basically, how the DFAA responds is it's like an insurance program. And so the province incurs the expenses, and then we reimburse the provincial government.
And some sad and shocking news out of Hollywood. Iconic filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife Michele Reiner were found dead Sunday afternoon at their home in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. The couple's 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner, has been booked on suspicion of murder. Reiner earned a lasting place in American culture as one of the stars of the landmark sitcom All in the Family, and then as the director of era-defining movies like This Is Spinal Tap, When Harry Met Sally, and of course, The Princess Bride.
You can die too, for all I care.
Oh. As you wish.
Oh, my sweet Wesley. What have I done? Ow!
So what are your favorite Rob Reiner films, and how are you remembering him today? Call us now. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or you can call 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. For more on this, we are now joined by Rachel Fox. She joins us in studio, and she's the senior programmer at the Rio Theatre here in Vancouver. Hi, Rachel. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
How are you feeling today after hearing the news of Rob Reiner's passing?
I mean, personally, my thoughts are very much with his family.
Yeah.
I think that this whole story is so shocking and grotesque and violent and all of those things. And there's so many layers of sadness to it and so much that we don't know. But I think initially that was my feeling, was what a horrible thing for his family. I don't know how people can recover from such a thing.
You know, and saying that there's just layers to it. There's so much to sort of consider when talking about this. And I know it has been very sad for a lot of members of different communities. I know that a lot of people will remember him as Meathead, of course, from the 70 TV series All in the Family. But they then went on to direct just iconic films. I'd love it if you could sort of walk us through the ones that you really think, I know it's hard not to say the best, but the ones that really stick with you.
Well, I think, in the segment that was touched upon, I mean, Spinal Tap is groundbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, it really...
The mockumentary.
It absolutely. You can draw a linear red thread from Spinal Tap through to, Gervais's The Office, to Modern Family, to so many films that we see, because they're so... and television rather, because they're self-reflexive in their humor and the use of the camera, which is really innovative. Like, it's how we tell stories now. I think for me personally, of course, The Princess Bride, I was a child when it came out, and it was just monumental. And it really is like an evergreen film. Like, it just doesn't ever feel dated. It never gets old. It's really timeless in that way. But I would say for me, I mean, I really am of the generation or the age that, when I would have sleepovers in middle school, it was always, we couldn't decide what we were going to get, and it was always going to be Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Was just, I mean, as far as coming of age films go, I think that for me and for many people my age and beyond just sort of captured so much of about innocence and innocence lost so beautifully.
And I do remember watching that film. I think I was probably 10 the first time I saw it, but I still have sort of the same feelings watching it now that I did when I was 10. And I find that's true, as you mentioned, with the movies that stick with you, and they don't age. You can
Yeah.
watch them at all points in your life and it'll still resonate with
I
you.
think so. I mean, I think given his, pedigree, the son of Carl Reiner, the apple doesn't really fall far, and it didn't in his case.
Yeah.
He was really able to beautifully balance in his art what life is, which is the sweet and the sour, and it's the happy and the bitter, and he brought that to his films. And I think certainly with a film like Stand By Me, it has those wonderful light moments, that we can think of in the film, but they're also mirrored or married rather to things that are more affecting and profound. And I think that as a filmmaker is something that distinguished his better films, was that ability to marry those two aspects of the human condition. Movies like, When Harry Met Sally, it's a rom-com, but there's some really sad and poignant moments in that film as well. So I think to me is what I think of is that balance of those two things is what makes films that resonate with people and they go back to them.
I would love to have people weigh in on this and to share what they think or what they feel is their favorite Rob Reiner film. You can call us at 604-669-3733. You can also reach us at 1-800-825-5950. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca and let us know your thoughts on today's topic. Tell us about, All in the Family. That's how most people first got to know Rob Reiner as an actor. That was sort of his first career before he went more into directing.
Right.
But it was quite groundbreaking at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, again, when he sort of emerged onto people's televisions as an actor. I think he was sort of, I mean, you could sort of call him, you know, one of the better known Nepo babies who ultimately, I think you can say surpassed even the impact of his father, Carl Reiner. So yeah, he was the perfect sort of, you know, liberal foil to Archie Bunker, who, you know, was such a sort of conservative kind of blowhard grouch. And he really owned that role as very much someone who was a kind of a evocative and a real hallmark rather of the era. And I think that element of his character is something that splayed into his real life too. He was known for his activism, and he carried that forward. But certainly, you know, he was, you know, famously, I think Norman Lear, who of course was the sort of producer, the brains behind All in the Family, and Carl Reiner and even Mel Brooks were sort of that real sort of core of a kind of era of Hollywood and comedy, of which, I mean, he was a student and a son, and he really did his own thing with that kind of sensibility.
And as you mentioned, he did parlay that character, that liberal activism into his own life, and worked tirelessly on behalf of many of the issues that he wanted to further. We did get an email in from Jen Matthews. Hands down, our favorite Rob Reiner film is The Princess Bride. That's from Corbin and Jen. And yes, let us know what your favorite Rob Reiner film was. 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. You did mention as well, of course, he's the son of comedy legend Carl Reiner. What do you know about his relationship, you know, with his father and with Mel Brooks? I sort of think of them as these two comedy powerhouses in their own right.
Absolutely. Well, I think if you sort of look at some of this sort of golden era of Hollywood, it was Brooks, Carl Reiner, and of course Norman Mailer, who made all these incredible TV shows like, you know, I don't know, like, you know, Different Strokes, or maybe not Different Strokes, but certainly All in the Family. And they're all sort of out of my mind at the moment. But he was such an important person. All of those shows that Mailer did were very progressive. And certainly All in the Family, I think, was the first of them. And then you just had people that were so instrumental in furthering a certain kind of comic sensibility. So I think that he's sort of that, you know, DNA. But he turned it into something else with his movies. And I think even just the movies that he made, the choices that he made sort of speaks to what the kind of person that he was in terms of his own, I don't know, feelings about humanity and art.
We've got a quick clip from one of my favorite films, When Harry Met Sally. Let's have a watch.
You know, I'm so glad I never got involved with you. I just would have ended up being some woman you had to get up out of bed and leave at 3 o'clock in the morning and go clean your andirons. And you don't even have a fireplace. Not that I would know this.
Why are you getting so upset? This is not about you.
Yes, it is. You are a human affront to all women, and I am a woman.
Of course, we cut out before we get to the very infamous part of that scene.
Of course.
One thing I loved about that movie, aside from seeing Billy Crystal in a cable knit sweater, is it really, I think, redefined that topic of a relationship, of a friendship between men and women, and whether or not you could successfully have that. And in the end, of course, we all know, spoiler alert, they fall madly in love and they end up together. But I think that was just such an accurate representation of these people sort of through the different stages of their lives, maintaining that friendship and the changing dynamic of it.
Sure, and I think it is a real hallmark for people, especially people who love romantic comedy, which is, you know, a genre that we haven't really seen a lot lately. And I think that stands, you know, certainly it's on a mountain. It may even be at the top of one of the greatest of those films ever made. But yeah, I mean, I love that movie too, because it's not just about Harry and Sally. There's other couples in there, and you get a little glimpse into sort of the complexities of people and their, you know, relationships and what works and what doesn't. And, you know, endlessly funny, endlessly sweet, but mostly endlessly relatable.
Exactly.
Is, I think, one reason why people go back to movies like that again and again, because, you know, we all like to see ourselves mirrored in some way, and something that we see, it makes us feel seen.
And I think, too, just see them sort of accurately represent the different ages and how that changes dynamics. And, yeah, you can see yourself in characters, maybe not the same character even, just at different times in your life. We do have a call now from Keith in Vancouver. Hi, Keith. What is your favorite Rob Reiner film?
It's probably not the most original, but have you heard of a film called The Princess Bride? I'm joking. But no, seriously, I did see it. It was funny. I was back in Halifax, and I was taking kind of random pictures of different places where I grew up and they no longer exist. So I'm driving on the road, and there's an old store that I used to go to that now is a sports store, a nail salon, or something has totally changed. So I just took a picture of the random buildings, and I took a picture of an apartment building off of the Armdale Rotary that used to be the Highland Theatre.
Okay.
And that is where I first saw The Princess Bride in 1987. And it was just such an important film. I mean, it's hard to explain. It's one of those. It's just so easy to digest, but at the same time, there's so many amazing actors that were in it, and it's just it just doesn't date itself. So it was just such a good memory as a kid getting to see that. And I didn't realize, I thought it was a really, really good film when I saw it, but then it just kind of the time doesn't date it whatsoever. So it's just such a good one to pass on to friends, kids, and things like that, and watch it with them for the first time. So it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for calling in. And yes, no surprise, Princess Bride, beloved by so many. And that is one of the great joys in life when you have younger kids in your family, just sort of, showing it to them for the first time. I remember that with my own kids. It was like such a big event for them to finally watch that. And a lot of his films did have that lighthearted touch, and they did have that relatability.
Yeah, and I think one of the things as well is that the lighthearted touch, I think, cut through the genres. Like I think, I'm thinking of a movie like Misery.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're not all that lighthearted.
That's right. Like, I mean, Misery, both Misery and Stand By Me are adaptations of works of Stephen King. So they are sort of anchored in King's sensibility, but the cinematic touch of what we see with, the Annie Wilkes character being sort of, there's funny moments in there. There's, horrifying and scary moments, but it's that the balance between the two. Sort of those absurdities and those strangenesses and those things that are a little more edgy that I think are what add to the creepiness of that film and that people sort of go back to it. And I mean, Misery really, that is a blueprint for a kind of fan, right?
Totally.
I mean, we still talk about Annie Wilkes and hobbling and all that stuff.
The hobbling scene. But I always found I was a bit conflicted watching the movie because you did feel compassion for you, did feel relatability. So it was that fine line.
I think so. Well, I think that actually really, to me, it says the most about the human experience is that maybe someone like Annie Wilkes isn't necessarily evil, but she is misdirected and she has other things going on. We see her as a bit more of a complex person and not just one thing or the other, which is what makes her sort of endlessly fascinating and where you want to go back and observe.
We also have had a couple of emails come in. Court writes, I give Spinal Tap an 11 out of 10.
Well played.
Well played. That was very well done. It says, I was shocked and saddened to hear the news. I had the pleasure of meeting him many years ago. He was an extremely nice guy. We did have somebody that wrote in to say that they do lament the loss of Rob Reiner and his wife, but they want to acknowledge first and foremost that today is the first full day of Hanukkah, and Rob Reiner was Jewish. Yesterday at Bondi Beach, we had a horrific attack on Jewish people, and I know Jewish people in Vancouver are feeling this, and I want to check in how you're feeling about things.
Honestly, it is. I think it's sort of all wrapped up in the same sort of feeling. It wasn't maybe a great day yesterday for that, but I think I don't know, even as we were speaking, I think about, when I think about him and his maybe particular brand of humor and how he parlayed that into his art. I mean, it's Jewish humor. I mean, this is a New York guy with that kind of New York sensibility, and that is completely on display. And in movies like When Harry Met Sally, and even characters in The Princess Bride, like we see it over and over again. I mean, Billy Crystal's in both of those films, and that sensibility, which is very much wrapped up into, I would imagine, his identity, and to see it played into his art is something that I think we feel that kind of kinship with. But the fact that that sort of humor actually goes beyond just any kind of affiliation. I think speaks to, again, a sort of greater sense of the fabric of humanity.
Very well said. Thank you so much for joining us today. Such a tragic loss, and nice to remember what an incredible legacy he leaves.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me.
That is Rachel Fox. She joined us here in studio, and she's the senior programmer at the Rio Theatre right here in Vancouver. This is BC Today on CBC. We're on Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on cbc.ca and YouTube at CBC Vancouver and on the CBC News app. And speaking of which, it is now time for the 12:30 news with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Flooding is expected in parts of the Fraser Valley and North Shore Mountains as another round of heavy rain batters the province. A flood warning for the Sumas River remains in place, with hundreds of properties in Sumas Prairie on evacuation alert. 75 properties are under evacuation order. BC's Police Oversight Agency is investigating after a pedestrian was killed in a crash involving a police vehicle in Surrey. The Surrey Police Service says it happened along 152nd Street after 7 o'clock last night. Surrey police say they can't comment further due to the ongoing IIO investigation. And the federal government is launching a task force to boost the long-term health of Canada's softwood lumber sector. Natural Resource Minister Tim Hodgson says the task force will begin early in the new year, and the team will bring recommendations to help the industry within 90 days. And now taking a look at the forecast, more heavy rain is expected in the Fraser Valley and the Manning Park area. There are also rain warnings for Metro Vancouver, parts of Vancouver Island, Howe Sound, Whistler, and the north and central coast. And there are snowfall warnings for many parts of northern and northeastern BC, with up to 20 centimeters expected. Here on the south coast this afternoon, more rain, a bit of sunshine in some areas, some strong winds as well, with highs around 14. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you so much, Rob. Nice to have you back from your travels. I can imagine you're just thrilled to be here and not on a sunny beach.
Yes, beautiful weather out there. Can't get enough of it.
Thank you, Rob.
Sure.
We received many emails last week about the Fraser Valley flooding, and here's just a few. From Anne, sure, now we need to have experts and researchers and all sorts of preventative work during and after these events. All this costs taxpayers money. We don't want to tax the rich, so we will have less money for other uses, and we continue to support fossil fuel projects leading to climate crisis. So it's a downward cycle. But in many places in the world, they suffer so much more, and we can have our fossil fuel projects. From Joan, both the feds and the provincial government have failed the residents of Abbotsford and Chilliwack by not taking the appropriate measures after the devastating 2021 floods here. When will our politicians learn they have been elected by us and work for us? Bonnie says, I used to think there was land that couldn't be farmed, but I learned that all land can be made to grow food. The Chinese peasants made their mountain terraces fertile, and I've improved all my land with inputs from my farm or other farms, both in Winlaw and in Nelson, and my topsoil is 2 feet deep. In Cuba, they took all the waste land and turned it into fertile soil when they were hit with boycotts against the government. I buy local and can because I've got a co-op that believes we need to support our local farmers and to have it grown organically. We are lucky. And thank you to everyone who reached out to us, and you can always email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. And Christmas is supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, but let's face it, the holidays can be a lot of work. Whether it's family feuds at the dinner table, struggling to find the perfect gift, the season can be filled with stress. So we're asking you, what stresses you out about the holidays, and how do you deal with that pressure? Call us now, just hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or you can call 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca, or just leave a comment on our TikTok Live. For more on dealing with these holiday pressures, joining us is Dr. Heather McEachern. McEachern, a registered child and adult psychologist in Kelowna. Hi, Heather. Thanks for joining the show.
Hi there. Nice to chat with you, Amy.
Heather, what are you hearing from patients this time of year? Tell us about some of the, I guess, holiday pressures that people are dealing with.
Well, different expectations from different people, or disappointments are difficult for everyone. My big message to people is do not should on yourself, that it should be a certain way or that you should be doing something. Instead, just try to find your own rhythm and make sure that you're taking it one day at a time. Thank goodness the days don't come more than one day at a time.
That's a very good reminder that I certainly could use this time of year. But there is a lot of pressure to sort of take in everything that you can. There's Christmas markets, there's work get-togethers, there's friend get-togethers. How do you sort of prioritize what you can do as opposed to what you feel you should do?
I think you need to look at whether you can maintain peace and happiness with the schedule in front of you. And if you can't enjoy it and maintain peace and happiness, then you have to prioritize. You have to make some difficult decisions. And if you have children around you, you might think that they need everything. They need all of the different opportunities, but really they just need that you are happy and content and resonating in a joyous way. That's more important to your children than all of the activities and all of the material gains and the materialization of Christmas. I mean, that you're happy and you have a joyous time celebrating each other. For those that have people to celebrate with.
We of course know that it is a time when families come together and reunite, but for some people, these type of gatherings are just a minefield of conflict. Tell us about how these tricky family dynamics, can impact a person, but also how best to navigate them this time of year.
Yeah, and in fact, I've been working with some clients for over a month now to prepare for this, for people that are really quite concerned. And part of it would be someone that's choosing a different lifestyle. They're not drinking alcohol as frequently, or they're not drinking at all. They are choosing to not watch the political news coming from the South because it's too stressful. And they might be at the table with someone drinking hard and talking about Trump nonstop, and that's going to be tough. So we talk about boundary setting and redirecting people with something shiny to talk about, something fun and interesting, maybe something from the past, like, hey, Uncle Jeff, I remember my first fond memory of you is back on the farm when you let me drive a tractor once, and just redirecting them positively rather than spanking them or slapping their hand for speaking about the things that you're trying to avoid. And saying what you did bring as a cocktail, an amazing mocktail that you love and it's healthy for you. And you're great. You're good. And you're happy. Thanks so much. Right?
Yeah.
I think we can set boundaries with a smile and a plan. And if someone's really forceful and you just stay upbeat, then they just look bad and it'll probably fizzle. But if you get upset, then that invites more upset, and away it goes.
But it can be very difficult, if somebody is, making offensive comments, if somebody is perhaps questioning your lifestyle or the choices that you've made for your life. How do you, sort of maintain that composure, but also maintain your integrity?
Yes. I'd say there are certain hills you don't want to die on if someone will go hard against you and you'll be the one remembering everything they said. So after a gentle, positive redirect and a boundary set, I would just get up for a stretch and excuse myself to use the washroom and just remove myself briefly and see if that works. Or, leave something out in the car on purpose and just say, oh gosh, I forgot something. I wanted to grab it and bring it in so that it warms up for after dinner. And just remove yourself and hope that that will also lead to a bit of a change, because we can't change other people. So setting boundaries, inviting positive content, stepping away when you need to, those are the things that you can do. And if it's really just too offensive and too adversive, you can bow out and you can spend the day, because it usually means we have some time. You can spend the day doing something you never get to do. You know, doing a bit of something creative for yourself, or reading a book without interruption. Like, there's lots of things that you can do to celebrate the quiet and the calm, and hopefully also engage yourself in positive distractions, so you don't go down the wormhole of being sad about what you don't have or who you don't have, that you honor them, you remember the people that you've lost, but you also think about how they would want you to enjoy yourself and do something you love.
We've got a couple of calls that have come in, Heather. I'd like to get to them now. Brian in Courtney. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem at all. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. How are you handling the holiday stress?
Oh, it's kind of a new era that I'm stepping into with a 12 and a 14-year-old. I started back in Halloween when I was asked to stay at home and not come out to go trick-or-treating anymore. That's the first time in 14 years.
Yeah.
With Christmas time here, there's new beliefs that have come out into the woods, and you know, the involvement that they are being participating with putting the Christmas tree up, it's not as strong as it used to be, and I'm a real celebrational of these type of events, right? Because it brings the family together, and not having them participate as much is really kind of hurting my feelings, because it really feels like the whole era is changing. You know, I guess I taught them well, and they're moving on to their own, but it's just sad to see. So that's the thing that's getting to me right now.
Oh, and I totally understand that pain. It's a difficult transition from small kids into teenagers. Heather, how do you sort of deal with that situation of accepting the Christmases that you used to have are done and changing?
So I am a child and adult psychologist.
You've got us covered.
Yeah, I got you covered. Developmentally, adolescence is about individuating, separating, becoming your own person. And a lot of adolescents will admit that they're still fond of the traditions, but goodness forbid that they would actually admit that they're fond of the traditions.
Yeah.
As long as there are no witnesses in the form of their friends and such, they might just relax into it. And you have a right as a parent to say, well, you know, you might not be as keen this year, but I certainly want you to participate to some degree. And I do want you here. The good news is that the value system that we introduce to our children in the first 13 years of life is very, very important. Their safety in the first 5 is critical, and then the value system up to about age 12 or 13. After that, they're going to separate a little bit from you, but they're going to come back. They will come back, and they will start to enjoy it again when they're not so worried about being cool and being affiliated with their peers. They will return to this, so just hold on tight to them until they find their way back to you.
They always do come back. You do have to remember that. We've got another call, this one in from Cole in Vancouver. Hi, Cole.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Great to be back on the show. Lots of great advice given so far. The thing that stresses me out is travel.
Yes.
And it's always going to stress me out, and there's no good solution. Because I'm the only one in my family who lives in Vancouver. The rest of them are in Kelowna, Saskatchewan, or Phoenix, Arizona. Now, it's for the obvious reason. When in Kelowna, I have options.
Oh, Cole, we're just having...
during holiday.
Cole, I'm sorry, we're just having a little trouble with your line there, but I do thank you for calling in. And Heather, obviously travel can be enormously stressful for a lot of people under the holidays. How do you set yourself up to have, you know, a less stressed travel day?
Right. Well, I'll choose a book that is short and funny and light, and I will read that whenever I get a break. And for me, then it's a bonus if there are delays, because I get further in my book. I'll also treat myself to some of my favorite magazines, which I really only buy in the airport. I don't really buy magazines elsewhere. If I have children along, I will bring an intact art task, like a nice little watercolor that's really easy to clean up after, that where the watercolors are right in the book, and they have those available in little art stores. And we've had great fun doing art while we were waiting around for things, and the children have enjoyed that. I noticed something on the news last night about, do we really want more place stations for the children where they can all just swap bacteria and viruses and then come back to us? So I try to keep my children with me and doing something fun and keep track of them and then go forward. Some people really don't want to travel at Christmas and they find it overwhelming. And yes, the weather, there'll be delays. It's going to be busier than usual. Give yourself enough time and have something that you enjoy to do so that you can while away that time and be in a good headspace about it. If you don't give yourself enough time, it's going to be very stressful.
Good advice. And of course, we'd love to hear what's stressing you out this holiday season. Just give us a call at 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. You can email us bctoday@cbc.ca. Heather, another big stress for a lot of people is gift giving. There's that pressure to be thoughtful and, come up with a perfect present that somebody would like and be honored to have. But then, especially this year, we're having to navigate much tighter budgets. So how does somebody manage that? It sometimes feels like we're giving a gift just for the sake of it, and we're not actually doing it out of the kindness of our hearts.
I mean, the gift exchange and there's lots of apps for that now, where everybody goes in and we set a financial value that is manageable for the person with the least amount of funds. And then we all get somebody else's name, and then there's just one gift each, so that it returns to it being about the gathering together and playing games and having fun. I'm inclined this year, I hope my family aren't listening, but I'm inclined this year, the girls, the adult women are getting the extra large yarn to make their own large blankets. And I've got the video recording of how to do it so that everybody can choose their own colors and make their own presents.
Oh,
So,
I love that.
yeah, it feels like a fun thing to do, and something that they're all busy, so there'll be a captive audience, and we can all have some fun with it. And I love some games that are fun and creative and for all ages. And we've got grandchildren, so we'll have some games that are more games of chance for the younger children, where they'll have the equal likelihood of success, and then some of the more creative games for the adults. And once the kids are tucked in. So it should be about being with people. But as I say this, I know that you've lost people. Some of the people listening today have lost someone extra special. And I hold them dear in my heart, the people that can't be at Christmas. I make my mom's favorite salad. She's no longer with us. She lived to be almost 97, so no complaints that way, but she'll still be treasured and missed. And I think about, I've got my father passed away before my mother, and I've got his favorite toy that he received during the Great Depression era.
Wow.
It was one little iron horse, and it's proudly displayed on the mantle. And I remember them fondly. And I remember what they would say and what they would say to me about celebrating with the people that are here, and all of the great wisdom from the people you really miss because they were of great value, and the relationship was very meaningful to you. You can have a little conversation as a psychologist. I'm saying you can have a little conversation with them in your head. It's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, it certainly can help. And I know for most people, when you've lost somebody, it's the first Christmas, it's the first birthday without them. That is really difficult. What would you say to somebody who is grieving over this Christmas and it's their first one without a loved one?
Yeah, I will tell you from people that have lost a child 20 years ago, there's no such thing as a first, and I don't mean to be negative, but it's always hard.
Yeah.
If you lose people out of order, the way it's supposed to be,
Yes.
that they don't get to live to be older. But for the first Christmas, yes, you probably have to add, even if it's the first Christmas divorced, if it's the
Yeah.
first Christmas where you can't get home and you're stuck in Vancouver because the roads aren't good and air travel is now expensive if you're last minute booking. I mean, if it's the first time to be away, create some new traditions, add some new things that look up all the different things that you could do and say, you know, well, maybe we'll do that because that didn't really fit when so and so was still here, or when I was married, or when I was home to Kelowna. Maybe it would be special to do something different. Maybe I'll do a walkabout. Maybe I'll go outdoor ice skating. Maybe I'm going to do something different. And just think outside of the box and think about adding traditions that might be meaningful. One year, I took my children to all of the Christmas concerts at the various churches in town, and there's such a variety. And we saw living nativity scenes, and we saw singing Christmas trees with massive choirs, and it was really fun and different. And we'd added that, and I canvassed the children, and we decided what to add, and it was great. So, and I know one family that started going to a movie on Christmas Day because the theaters were almost empty.
Yeah.
and that's kind of a nice treat too. So I just encourage people to be creative. And if your mental health is poor, and if it's, I mean, mental health, seasonal components to mental health can make your mental health worse at the shortest day of the year. And we're coming. The winter solstice is upon us on the 21st here, and that will be the shortest day of the year, but it'll also be the beginning of longer days. It'll be the beginning of the renewal of longer days and more sunshine ahead. And we're about to reach the crescendo and move forward into the light. And so I just encourage people to think about that and use a sad lamp in the mornings. They call them happy lamps now. That's probably a good
Probably for the
reframe.
best, yes.
Yeah, they used to call them a sad lamp. They really do work. The research is there. It's been around since the 70s, so it's strong. I have sad lamps on all of my plants, and in my home office in the morning, I start my day there, and all of my plants look happy, and so do I.
Well,
so,
that's good.
Yeah, it's a good strategy too. Yeah,
oh, sorry.
Try to eat healthy too. I know there's a lot of amazing choices right now, but try to, in a base way, eat healthy. If you're worried a little bit about your weight, consider intermittent fasting. It's got great research-driven results now, and you can do that however you like. We've got an international expert on this in Toronto, Dr. Jason Fung, and he writes on this eloquently, just ways to, because physical health and mental health is connected. And
very much so.
And so we really want to keep our physical health and our mental health well. Remember, alcohol is a depressant. It's odd because if you smoke a cigarette, the package has to be well demarked to indicate what kinds of cancers you should get, with pictures of what you might get. And for people that are hooked on cigarettes, that's a big task to get over. But alcohol bottles don't say depressant in a bottle.
No.
The liquor bottles don't say, "Oh, this one's a real doozy." They instead get to package in beautiful colors with like complimentary gifts attached on the top, etc. And alcohol is a depressant. So of course the first few drinks aren't, but whatever it buys you, it's going to sell the next day. And it doesn't contribute to a good sleep. So just be thoughtful about that too.
Okay.
If I was going to a dinner where there might be some controversy, I'd be very careful so I didn't get too impulsive after a second.
That's always a good idea. I do want to just get one more call in here, Heather. This is Dawn in Victoria. Hi, Dawn. Oh, I think we may have lost Dawn, unfortunately. Oh, we're going to try again. Dawn, are you there?
I am.
Hi,
Can you hear
Dawn.
me?
Yes, I can. So what stresses or
great.
strategies do you have this year?
Well, the only issue I really have is, unfortunately, listening to all the programs these days, be it radio, TV, the internet, about why people have so many problems at this time of year. And, it can get depressing listening to all these challenges that people fall into. I think it's all about focus. And if we choose, again, to focus on things that we can be grateful for, thankful for, programs that encourage positive mental health rather than bringing someone down into the ditch, because life will obviously dish out as much garbage as possible, with all due respect to anybody that has any problems that are medical. But a lot of them are psychological, and I can tell you most of them are self-inflicted, because we can choose to turn the radio on, turn the radio off, turn the TV on, turn the TV off. But what we fill our minds with, who we speak to that encourage us, I think is going to give us a positive outlook in our life, which will reflect on our sphere of influence of people.
No.
So we need to get that message where we can not thrive on the negative, but maybe something that's a little bit more than down in the dumps, because it's easy to find.
Well, Don, I really thank you for bringing that up, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And Heather, it can be overwhelming to sort of have this barrage of seemingly endless bad news via the news or people you know. How do we, take a cue from Don and sort of try and focus on the things that are good as opposed to always focusing on the negative?
Yes, I think at the end of the day, you want to choose to foster connections with people who celebrate the small things with you, who, savor your company and you enjoy theirs reciprocally. There are lots of things that we can do to make sure that we structure our downtime in ways that honors what we really enjoy. Small things that you can accomplish and like crafty things or carpentry things where you can finish something in a really short time frame, and then celebrate that. I think, and gift giving should be maybe more catered to, is it fun? Is it fun to prepare this for someone? Is it meaningful? Is it manageable? I'm not going to have debt afterwards, am I? It's not going to be too much in January. Is this all going to be something that I love to do? And he's right. We want to stay positive. We sort of want to identify the barriers and set some boundaries, and then within the context of what you've decided you wish to do that will actually be joyful, that you stay positive and you enjoy that.
Heather, I'm sorry to jump in, but we are straight out of time and up against the news.
Yes.
But thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. You take care. And happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. Heather McEachern is a registered child and adult clinical psychologist. She joined us from Kelowna. And that is it for our show today. Thank you for joining us and on BC Today. And you can listen to the show again on the CBC Listen app and watch us on demand on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. I'm Amy Bell. Thank you for joining us on BC Today, and I hope you have a great afternoon.